Hey, you're listening to episode number 4 of the Obsessive Creative Podcast. Here we talk about, I don't know what to say right here. I've changed it every week and we're still getting to where I want it to be. But more or less, we talk about what it means to be an obsessive creative person and what goes on in the mind of such people. I'll make it better next week, hopefully. I'm your host, Luke Cleland, and you can stay up to date on all things obsessive and creative by following me on Instagram at LukeWTCleland. Let's get into the show. So doing this podcast has made me very acquainted with the idea of the imposter syndrome. And I'm sure you've heard about it before. It's more or less exactly how it sounds, right? Feeling like you're an imposter, lots of self-doubt, anxiety, not sure what you're doing, why you're doing it, and you want to maybe crawl in a hole and hide. I've really even only told 6 people that this podcast exists directly. So, and I don't intend on telling anyone else until I get to episode 10 because the imposter syndrome is real. But man, what is that? What is that horrid feeling that you get? That you totally feel like a fake, an imposter, a ridiculous person. Why on earth are you even trying this? What is that? And what are those feelings? And not only do you get them when you're trying something new, you can also feel it when you've been doing something for a while, and maybe even when you're pretty good at doing something and you've had some recognition for it. Today, we're going to talk about all those thoughts and when you should be listening to yourself and maybe when you shouldn't be listening to that imposter voice. So I just watched the movie The Founder for the second time. It's the movie about the founding of McDonald's and the growth that happened afterward. It's really fast. I love this movie. I love it because it's the worst. and there's this part in the last scene that really sparked a lot of thought around the imposter syndrome for me. And it's this part where the main character, I don't remember his name, but the main character is kind of later on in his life. McDonald's has been wildly successful at this point, and he's about to give a speech on the success of McDonald's. And if you've watched the movie, you realize that, well, he tells everybody he's the founder and he started it, and what he calls like McDonald's number one. He was calling his McDonald's number one the first McDonald's, when in reality that's not quite true. It was actually the McDonald brothers that had the first McDonald's ever. And so he kind of tweaked this story to make himself look more impressive, maybe actually way more impressive than he was. And there's this part where he's practicing his speech in front of a mirror, and he has this look that you don't see anything like it throughout the entire movie. You see this confident, blazing forward entrepreneur just ready to just like tear down anyone to get what he wants. And then at the end, he's telling this story about how he was McDonald's, his McDonald's was the first McDonald's, because this is a story that he needed to tell to make himself feel good. And there is this look of guilt. He was feeling how much of a fraud he was. And that reminded me of times in my life, and I'm sure maybe times in your life, when you feel like an imposter. And the reason I bring that story up is exactly what I am not talking about. I'm not talking about changing the story and making it sound way better than it is so that people will accept you and love you. That's not what I'm talking about. What I am talking about is that feeling that wells up when you've started something that you've wanted to do for a long time, and you're finally doing it. Or maybe you've been doing something for a while. Maybe you've been doing something, a creative pursuit for a while, and you've actually got some recognition. It's going well. And maybe people are even paying you for it. And all of a sudden you you have this sick feeling that they're going to find out. They're going to find out that I am a sham. And even though I do this good work and I do this work and people love it, it feels like they're going to find out and someone's going to come and get me. Well, today we're going to talk about that exact feeling and the time maybe when it's valid and the other times when it's totally not valid. All right, so first up, we're going to talk about when it's actually true, when maybe you should feel like an imposter. All right, and I know this time because I am in it right now. I am doing something that I don't know much about at all. I'm very much in the learning phase of learning how to talk into a microphone and doing the podcast thing. And because of that, I have a lot of imposter syndrome feelings going on right now. In this moment, there's lots of thoughts going like, why am I doing this? This is ridiculous. Like, I am silly for doing this. People are going to find out that I'm a complete just like loser and I shouldn't be doing this. And there are times when that's going to come up. And to blow past that, and to miss all those feelings and just to like not think about it and just say like fake it till you make it, I don't think is super healthy. I think there is times in our lives when we need to feel the pressure, that we need to feel those feelings of inadequacy. Because I think if we do feel those things, that's the times, if we do it right, is when we can learn the most. When you can accept to yourself that you're learning and you're not there and you haven't figured everything out and you don't need to pretend that you're someone that you're not. I think, that phrase, like fake it till you make it. I understand the sentiments of it, putting your best foot forward and, in some senses faking it until you actually become that thing that you want to be. But at the same time, you need to be, in order to like learn the most you can in the early stages of like, I have no idea how to do this, being okay with being in the learning stage and taking one step at a time is so helpful. Because if you're not open to learning, if you're not open to the fact that you might not know everything, then you're going to miss out on learning so many lessons that you otherwise would try to just like skip ahead. I think it's really easy to want to be at the make it part. You want to become the expert. You want to get there and like skip all the horrible, embarrassing learning moments. But if you do that, you're never going to be to the point where you've made it. You're never going to learn the things you need to learn to get where you want to go. So I think that's one time that we can really feel the imposter syndrome. And I think that's the one time that it's okay. And it's actually really helpful in the learning process. And then I think the second reason why we feel this imposter syndrome has something to do with how we view ourselves and how we view our own contribution to the creative world. I'd say this is where many of us are. Even if you've been doing something for years, this imposter syndrome comes and goes. And even when you think you're at a point in your creative pursuit that you've gone beyond it, that's when it starts coming up again. And you're like, what? I thought I had left you behind a long time ago. And here you are again, popping your ugly head up. Why does that happen? Well, I think one reason it happens is because creativity is so much in the realm of personality and ideas, that soft science side of things. It can feel very personal. It can feel very connected to who you are and being accepted by other people and being loved by people. I think it can get aggravated in two ways. One, whether you believe your voice is important or not. And then the other way is I think we start losing the magic. I think the magic that we create stops being magic to us. So going to that first point, like, do you see your voice as important? Here's the thing. No one has ever existed exactly like you, and no one will. Like, something I've really struggled with is with the age of Instagram and photographers, it can be easy to feel like everyone's already done something. And what's the point of me bringing my creative ideas to the table? Do my insights, do how I see the world, will that really add to the discussion, or is it just going to create more noise? Two things. I'd say first that if you are a person that is coming from a place of values, if you're coming from a place of wanting to help people around you with your obsessiveness of creativity, and if that comes from a place of wanting to help, a place of creating beauty, goodness, loving people around you, then I think absolutely anything you do is worth it. Because there is so much garbage and crap out there. There is so many people that are just trying to make a quick buck and trying to just copy people and rip people off. That I think if you come from a genuine place of wanting to create and help those around you, man, I think this world is going to be better for having you in it. I think this world is going to be better for having you creating things in it. And then going to the second point, feeling like there's too many cooks in the creative kitchen. There's too many people baking pies, and there's a pie overload. There's a creative pie overload. And there's especially the famous pie makers. Okay, I've gone too deep. There's too many famous creative people, or it feels like that, right? You look at Instagram and there's like, oh, maybe I'm not the same as the person ahead of me. And their reach is so much deeper than mine. And what's the point of doing anything if I'm not the famous version of it? And I think I'd say to you that, think about your life. Is it always the most famous and the most well-known people that have made the biggest impact in your life? And I think it's easy to look at the amount of reach that we can make with our work as opposed to the impact. I think some of the people that really deeply influenced me early on in my life to pursue creativity, to love beauty, to think differently, are by no means famous artists or famous people in any way. And I think that's really amazing that if we take our focus off how many people we will reach and instead look at how deeply can we affect people and how deeply can we impact people, man, I think we're gonna be happier creatives, because our work and our obsessiveness goes so deep to our personality and who we are. I really believe that if we look and if we focus, no matter what you're doing, no matter what creative pursuit you're doing, if we focus on impact as opposed to reach, then of course our voice is going to be important, because the people around you need your voice. I realize the irony when I'm going to talk about a very famous person right now, but I started reading the Harry Potter books pretty recently, and I somehow got through life with not knowing anything really about them besides the fact that there's a guy named Harry and a man with a long beard in it. And the thought kept crossing my mind that, man, this is such a gift. These stories bring so much joy to me that this is such a gift that the author gave me and has given so many people. And it would have been such a shame if she never wrote them in the first place. And I'd suggest to you that you may not publish as many books as Harry Potter, or print as many prints, or do whatever you do. But creativity can so deeply impact people I would hate for you to be the person that never did what you felt like you should do. And people would miss out on that gift that you could have given them. I think the second area where the imposter syndrome can really start sneaking in, especially in someone's mind who's been doing this for a little while and has had some traction already. And that's when your magic starts losing its magic to you. When I was like 10 years old, I was on a magic trick obsession. It was around the time when David Blame, I'm not sure how to say his last name, but that guy, the crazy magician guy. But I was obsessed with magic tricks. And there was this, one of the first tricks I'd ever learned was this kind of very simple, basic levitation trick. But it was pretty cool looking. But it really just was like one simple thing to do, and it looked like you are standing and floating on the ground. And the thing is if I did the trick right and I did all the things that I learned right, that my friends at school were pretty amazed at what I did. And if I kept doing it right and I kept doing it over and over again to new people and to different people and sometimes even the same people, they were pretty amazed by what I did. But after a while, to me, it lost its charm. And it lost its charm because, like, I knew all the behind the scenes. I knew how to do everything. And it stopped being fun for me. So I don't know if this is like the best analogy to relate to your creative practice, but just hear me out here. Imagine your creative practice is not just like one of these like silly little levitation tricks, but thousands of tricks, thousands of things learned, little lessons on YouTube. Maybe if you went to art school, all of the projects that you've put hours into, things that you've tried that have succeeded, things that you have tried that have failed, maybe failed miserably. You are not just who you are today. Your creative work is a culmination of everything that you've learned. That they are learned one at a time, just like that little levitation trick, but then they are marinated in this special sauce of you. And that's what makes it magical. That someone else can learn all of the same things that you do, but no one has your sauce. I don't know if that's super weird, but we're going with it. It's no one is you. Isn't it amazing that so many people can learn how to paint with a paintbrush, but paint so very different artwork? It's those special ingredients of you plus all the things you've learned that will make something so unique. So don't discount your voice, and don't discount all of the steps and all of the lessons and all the little magic tricks that you've learned along the way. This year was a anniversary for sending a man to the moon. And if you've ever been on YouTube, you know that there is a wide variety of conspiracy theories around this topic. So I decided to go a deep dive into some of those videos, and I learned lots of things. One of the things I did learn that I didn't really realize about the moon landing is that, we all just see the video of, the man stepping out on the moon and the phrases that they said and all the hoopla that went around this crazy, amazing event, which totally seemed like magic. And the thing that we don't see and that so many other people didn't see was that this wasn't just one attempt. This was the culmination of so many attempts and so many failures leading up to this culmination of landing on the moon. Everyone else just saw the final act, but very few people saw the years and the manpower that it took to try and fail and try and fail again until they finally did what they did. Don't underestimate the things that you've done. Don't underestimate who you are. Don't underestimate, even though maybe you've just learned very similar things to what everyone else has learned. No one has learned them like you have. So, in your creative practice today, don't forget about the hours and the days and maybe the years that you've spent learning those little levitation tricks one at a time. And as you look at your list of to-dos and things you need to finish in order to continue your creative pursuit, even though you may look at them as a list and things to check off and things to finish, your audience, the people on the other side, see them as pure magic. Thank you so much for listening this week. I really appreciate it. If you enjoyed this week's podcast, I would love for you to subscribe on iTunes or wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you have some feedback, I'd love to hear your thoughts. So please shoot me a DM on Instagram and tell me what you love to hear on Obsessive Creative or how I could do things better. I can't wait to talk to you next week. And until then, stay obsessed.